My dear brother Carlos Lopez, Executive Secretary of the UNECA and host of this meeting, leadership of the UN Women and the entire UN family, Mrs. Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi of the African Development Bank and other members of the bank, ministers, my dear sisters. I would have loved to be part of this African Regional Conference and what will no doubt be a lively discussion on the route we have traveled since Beijing. 20 years ago, thousands of women from across the globe gathered on the shores of Beijing at the historic 4th Global Conference on Women's Equality. They represented their governments and billions of women to chart a platform for action that will ensure that we remove all obstacles to women's active participation in all spheres of public and private life through a full and equal share in economic, social, cultural, and political decision-making. This has become a clarion call for women and gender activists and for governments everywhere. It informed the AU's solemn declaration on gender equality and the African Decade for Women. As we approach the celebration of 20 years since Beijing, we must take stock of the progress and setbacks on the road towards a full and equal share for women in economic, social, cultural, and political decision-making. Ladies and gentlemen, and my dear sisters, without preempting your discussions at this forum, let me say that Africa should be proud of the progress, but it should also be mindful of the challenges that lie ahead. We have today 11 African parliaments that have more than 30 female MPs, and Rwanda leads the world with women holding 63% of the seats. The number of women in African executives is also increasing, and there is a move beyond the traditional portfolios that female ministers used to occupy. Now we see female ministers of finance, mining, foreign affairs, defense, etc. We can do more in local government, but even there we can see some progress, with women helping to bring government closer to the people at this critical level of governance. Progress in the private sector has been much slower, with women's representation in the professions as owners, on company boards, and in management growing at a snail pace. Women are the majority in the agricultural sector and informal trade. Yet their access to capital, to markets, to infrastructure, to modern technology, and to skills to enable them to grow their businesses, get decent jobs, and improve their incomes continue to be held back by patriarchal attitudes. As we approach the AU Year of Women's Empowerment for the realization of Agenda 2063 next year, we must take the fight for gender equality and women's empowerment into the economic spheres. Women's equality and empowerment start with our girl children, and we are uniting in campaigns to keep our girls in school and to start focusing on STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, maths, and innovation. We must also fight against child marriages, female genital mutilation, and teenage pregnancies. Finally, the scourge of violence remains a threat for women's rights as human rights. From domestic violence to rape to sexual violence in conflicts, This is a war against women and girls, against boys and men, which must be won. That is why we insist that in every conflict that women must be at the negotiating table, and in every election that women must participate and be represented. It is a victory that will not only be in the interest of millions of victims of violence, but in the interest of a humane and peaceful world that respects the dignity of every member. My brothers and sisters, looking ahead, the next 20 to 50 years will be critical for making decisive progress in building an Africa that is integrated, non-sexist, peaceful and prosperous. This will only happen if women continue to unite, to organize and mobilize, and if women in positions of responsibility and progressive men open the way for other women to join them. I look forward to your deliberations and wish this African Regional Conference on Beijing +20 a resounding success. I thank you. Asante sana.